if you have desirable cargo, these thieves are going to go through hell to try and get it.
Well, joining us today is Danny Ramon. He is the head of intelligence and response with Overhaul, and a recent well-publicized egg theft in Pennsylvania has us talking to Danny today. 100,000 eggs valued at right around $40,000 was the heist, and it really put two things into the spotlight for me, Danny. First, it was just how eager journalists are to use puns. Like I think I saw every egg pun you can imagine under the sun used.
For sure. For sure. They love to be clever whenever they get the opportunity, right? I would.
The other thing I think it showed off, though, was just how adept cargo thieves are at just responding to the market. And that's something that you guys had pointed out as well. I mean, obviously, egg prices have been all the buzz across the country, and then suddenly we have somebody, lifting 100,000 of
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always telling people that these criminal organizations are agile, right? They're not making decisions by committee or by board. They don't have to wait a couple of weeks to get their, quarterly directives or whatever it may be. They see an opportunity, they're going to go get it, right? And with things like eggs, and a lot of things that are not uniquely serialized, it makes it easier to liquidate for these thieves. These things are harder to be tracked by the shippers, by the original owners of this cargo. It's harder to prove that this egg is the same egg that was stolen. They don't have unique barcodes on them or anything like that. That and coupled with the fact that criminals are getting more sophisticated at liquidating their stolen goods. They're getting to the point where the new model is now criminal to consumer, which reaps them a much higher profit margin than it used to when they would have to go through an intermediary fence operative, right? And when they do that, when they increase the amount of money that they can get for any given load, it also lowers the bar for what becomes an attractive and profitable load for them to steal. So now, yeah, eggs are in demand and are having a price spike and have a lot of other reasons why they might be desirable. But all of a sudden, we're seeing a whole bunch of other things, especially within the food and drinks category, become targeted again because the bar has been lowered for what is a profitable load for these criminals to steal, what's worth their time. And as a matter of fact, we just had another story come out over the weekend regarding food and drinks thefts. Something, let me see here, over $1 million worth of olive oil stolen in Canada, man. I mean, again, that's something you can't serialize, right? You can't put a unique barcode on a bottle. I mean, you could on a bottle of olive oil, but it sounds like it was being transported in bulk. So, but fictitious pickup, right? They're doing strategic theft for olive oil in Canada now.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting too when I saw that story. The first thing that jumped to mind was Guy Fieri and his stolen tequila, right? Because
Right.
it was the same type of theft. It was a strategic theft, and the company essentially just handed it over to a fraudulent carrier, and they walked away with $1 million worth of profit.
Right. Now with that tequila theft, right? What protected that industry was the amount of regulation and paperwork that goes into tracking alcohol, right? Now I talked with you last time about how the common MO of criminals forging paperwork is allowing them to break into new markets like alcohol, right? Because now they can doctor that documentation that they need in order to transport it across state lines. But it's really interesting to see that happening, with other areas that are not necessarily as cost dense, but again, because the bar is being lowered for what's profitable and what is desirable for a thief. Areas that have never had to deal with cargo theft at all in any capacity are now dealing with the most advanced forms of cargo theft, strategic cargo theft.
Well, and one thing too, going back to these eggs, like I thought, like number one, it wasn't just the price that made those things appealing. Like I can't imagine they were really on high alert going into last week, thinking somebody was going to steal 100,000 eggs off of a truck. Like it seems that some of these, shifting markets, they're not even really prepared or even thinking about the concept that people are going to be targeting those loads.
Absolutely. And the market shifts on a dime. Like it just makes absolutely neck breaking turns sometimes. It's crazy. I posted on LinkedIn, I think a week or two ago, a meme that somebody had showed me that was just a general meme about life. But I saw, I always see things through the lens of a supply chain. And it, and it was, in my day, eggs and toilet paper were so plentiful that we used to throw them at the houses of our enemies. And I'm like, man, isn't it crazy how the supply chain affects our lives in ways we don't even realize, right? But it's like, yeah, those used to be things that were so plentiful. We just throw them at people as a prank.
Well, another thing that, as we talk about like some of the prices that might be affecting those targeted loads, I mean, tariffs are expected to impact the price of a lot of goods. Are those types of cargo going to be seeing that same type of targeting in the coming year?
I mean, very likely, right? Because these thieves are looking for anything that they're going to turn around for the biggest amount of delta, the biggest amount of profit margin that they can get. Now we've seen, speaking of turning on a dime, let's bring up the issue of tariffs, right? Uh, Tariffs we've seen in just the last couple of weeks have done so many 180s that we're not even sure where it stands right now, right? That's a bit of an exaggeration. Obviously, we can go and check and see exactly where it stands, but we don't know if a tariff is going to be declared or implemented. How long that's going to stand, how long lasting of an impact that may have. But the bottom line is anything that affects the consumer price for something is going to affect the attractiveness to a thief.
We're talking with Danny Ramon. He is the head of intelligence response at Overhaul, and talking cargo theft. And obviously, those eggs, they're a perishable item. And, we talk about it a lot, them having to have a buyer lined up for it, obviously. And I forget the terminology you use to do it, but it really is cargo theft by order, really. Like they're saying, hey, we already have somebody to spin this. I guess from a driver and a business owner standpoint, when you're hauling perishable items, how can you kind of stay ahead of that curve?
I mean, the entire supply chain has to be aware of what's going on and has to have at least a certain level of security installed into their supply chain because everything is at one point going to become a target. If you haven't been a target yet, you're going to become a target. As these criminal networks increase in sophistication, they're figuring out, just like any corporation would, they're figuring out how to eke out more profit margin from the same thing that they're already doing, right? So lower and lower thresholds become potential targets for them, and it's just really tough. So the same thing that I recommend for almost any electronics shipper or pharmaceutical shipper, at least some of those steps need to be taken by your basic shippers of food and drinks and lower value or what they might consider lower target items need to be aware of what's going on as well. And the first thing that anybody should do is plug themselves into the industry, start attending trade shows, start attending some of these conferences, follow the key players on LinkedIn. We're always releasing open source intelligence that gives you situational awareness of what's going on in the supply chain right now. But again, just as with those electronics shippers and pharmaceutical shippers, there is no silver bullet that's just going to cure everything all at once.
Well, and one thing you had alluded to is also providing some of that open source insider information. One of those insider alerts that I recently saw was talking about cargo thieves now jumping on trailers at stoplights.
Yeah.
Cost dense items they're obviously hopping on and stealing those. But tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a slight. I don't want to say it's necessarily connected, but we've seen in Europe some more daring types or variants of that theft, where folks will actually hop onto the hood of a moving car behind a tractor trailer, pop open the doors of that tractor trailer while it's driving down the highway, and jump from the hood of the car behind it into the trailer and start passing merchandise back into that follow car. Now, that's not what we're seeing here in the U.S. But what we're seeing is that these folks are hopping on, at a stoplight or at a stop sign, wherever they have a chance. Usually, it's a crew of people that are identifying this load at origin, and they're going to try and hop on before it gets onto the highway, or they might stage themselves at a truck stop. And if that driver makes a brief stop at a truck stop, they'll enter the trailer there. They know a lot of the folks who are carrying these cost dense items are not going to stop for very long, especially if they have team drivers. This is an industry standard practice. You hire team drivers so that it can stop for as few times and for as little a little amount of time as possible, right? These folks know that they're not going to have the amount of time that they need to perform a full theft, so they're just going to pop the seal on the trailer doors, get inside the trailer. Then they'll be able to look through. Maybe it's an LTL load. It's not all the same product on there. They'll be able to look through all the pallets, cherry pick exactly what they want, and then they'll make a call to their friend who's in the chase vehicle, letting him know, hey, okay, we're ready to get out, and then he'll pull up, and the next time that vehicle stops, they'll jump out and they'll get back into that follow vehicle. Now, what's really interesting and what's happened is whenever, or the reason that we found out about this is that in a couple of these instances, there's not been a safe opportunity for them to exit, right? So they've had to manufacture that opportunity for them to exit the tractor trailer. And they'll usually do that by having an accomplice pull in front of the tractor trailer and either extremely slow down to the point where they can pop out safely, or actually slam on the brakes to the point where it forces the tractor trailer to stop. All it takes is 5 seconds for these guys to get out of the tractor trailer. And then, of course, it might not be until the shipment arrives at delivery that they open the trailer doors and notice, like, hey, this whole trailer's been rummaged through, 2 or 3 pallets are missing, whatever it may be. It's pretty daring, but again, it just goes to show the effort that these guys are willing to go through. Everyone says, like, well, I did this, I took this one step. I wouldn't figure that they were going to be willing to go past that. And it's no longer about not being the low hanging fruit.
And in those instances where they had to pull in front of the tractor trailer to come to a stop, like obviously they have a little bit of an interaction with the driver, but it sounds like they're kind of totally unaware of it until they reach their destination.
Yeah, in some cases, drivers have noticed it and have made calls to their dispatch or police, panicking and saying, that somebody's hanging off the back of my trailer or something. It sounds like those are cases where they maybe had their exit wasn't quite as smooth as they would have liked.
Yeah, and when I saw that insider alert, like I had heard about in Europe, like cargo thieves jumping off of hoods. I didn't realize it had a name to it. I didn't realize it was called the Romanian gymnast or the
Yeah,
Romanian roll. Like that just seems like something that's like straight out of a movie, man. And
it really
suddenly,
does.
I was scouring the internet trying to find video of anybody pulling this off.
Oh, I'll send you a link. I've got a video link of one of those.
Oh, that's so
But yeah,
appreciated, man.
it is called the Romanian roll or the Romanian gymnast because at least the original crew who practiced it was a group of Romanian gymnasts, uh, who actually they were the ones hopping out on the hood of the car to pop the seal on the trailer and hop in the back of the truck. So
Man,
yeah,
those are like comic book villains, man.
yeah. And I don't know if you saw, we actually put out another Intel Insider alert recently that kind of follows the same theme of criminals escalating their tactics, right? This one was not quite as interesting of a pilferage method as while it's in motion, but we're seeing an escalation of fraudulent methods, people posing as legitimate carriers to try and fraudulently uplift cargo from a shipper. In the past, the origins of the quote unquote fictitious pickup method of theft was very much social engineering, showing up pretending to be the carrier who was supposed to upload that particular shipment. And we'd see folks showing up with, placards that were printer paper with the information written on with Sharpie and stuck on the side of the tractor with duct tape. You know, that evolved to, it was a couple months ago that we sent out an alert about folks pretending to be carriers and using a little bit more sophisticated remarking techniques, magnetic placards, and zip ties for the license plate of the tractor at chest height on the grill, right? Indicating that they're not bending down to change the license plate 6 times a day. They're just going to do it at chest height. So they've escalated from that to the point where now they are completely cloning carrier tractors, well-known, established, large national carriers, and they're getting the color scheme right. They're getting the unit number format right. They're getting the logos right. And then when they show up, the drivers even have information about the trailer that they're supposed to pick up, right? This is a continued escalation of the same tactic. It's an old MO, but they're going to new lengths to obtain the freight. And people are constantly surprised by it. I'm like, guys, you're sending folks that you've never met from California to Florida with a $250,000 load of televisions. Like, how much trouble would you go through for a $250,000 payday?
Yeah, and it does. It just feels like they're putting in an awful lot of work to make a dishonest living. Like,
Yeah, we talk about it all the times when we're on these recovery calls. Like, man, if these guys would put half the amount of effort that they put into this into legitimate enterprise.
yeah, sky's the limit for him, man.
Yeah.
Well, he's Danny Ramon. He's the head of intelligence and response with Overhaul, and always a great time talking to you about cargo theft.
Always a great time talking to you, Ryan. Thanks for having me again.
Hey, thanks for watching. To stay up to date on the latest in trucking news, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified of new videos when they come out each week.